My name's Jeff Duritz. I'm the representative with the Physicians and Dentists Union. I think I just want to start briefly by saying that when I heard that Donna Gross was killed on October 23rd, it was a Saturday, and I knew that what occurred to me as soon as I got over the shock of hearing it was that that could have been anybody. That could have been any rehab therapist, psychologist, social worker, psychiatric technician. It could have been anybody. It could have been another patient, could have been a visitor. So I want to keep that in mind while we talk about what we need here today. So we're going to have a few speakers come up. Dr. Busse is the president of the Union of American Physicians and Dentists, and he's just going to start us off.
Good afternoon. Brothers and sisters of AFSCME 2620, SEIU 1000, CAPT, CSLEA, UAPD, all Napa State staff, legislators, and public and media, thank you. I am Stuart Busse. I represent the Union of American Physicians and Dentists, 2,000 of our state doctors, 350 in the DMH, Department of Mental Health, 75 in Napa. I'm family practice by training, but I've worked at the state 19 years, and I've had extensive experience working with mental patients. You know, as graduating medical students, we took an oath of Hippocrates, which said we wanted to remain a member of society with a special obligation to all our fellow human beings not to do any harm to anyone. Now I'm asking the state of California to do the same for the workers of Napa State Hospital. We want a safe environment, and look at my back of here, we want safety now. This past October, we watched two tragedies unfold that had very different outcomes. One was with the Chilean government. You remember what happened with the 33 copper miners who were trapped underneath the ground. They worked tirelessly, and immediately the Chilean government worked 24/7 to get those guys out. And now we have the Department of Mental Health. After years of ignoring warnings from all of the staff, our doctors as well as the nurses and psych techs, about the increasing violence, the Napa State Hospital and the DMH, led by Cindy Radowski, has had what I consider an anemic response to the murders of Donna Gross and the savage beating of George Anderson. Okay, make no mistake about it, there's been hundreds of these incidents. Working at DMH is just as dangerous as working in a copper mine in Chile. On one job, in one hand, you have workers who use dynamite in a controlled manner. They're predictably using it to make the mine. At DMH, you have to worry about the human dynamite that's out there in the form of unpredictable, violent inmate felons. There's no doubt this is one of the most dangerous jobs in the state. And most of us have heard about the statistics. I'll rattle them off real quick. 200 staff attacks in 2009, the first quarter. Then 700 patient assaults. They're vulnerable as well. 1,580 crimes in 2009, 224 instances of staff missing works. But stats alone cannot portray the fear, pain, and disillusion of these workers here. Ask Dr. Frishman, who'll be speaking, or Dr. Bortman, who got his wrist broken, or the doctor down south who had his ear bitten off by a patient. One of the psych techs here who was almost raped. I was punched in the jaw by a mental patient. Since 2006, when the Department of Justice began directing care at DMH, our doctors have warned about the increasing safety concerns. You know that 20% back 15 years ago of these patients were forensic criminally involved patients. Now it's 90%. So we're asking for short-term solutions, high security units for repeatedly violent inmates, increased hospital police on units in secure areas, increased staffing, not decreased staffing, for high-risk wards. We want video cameras just like they have in Macy's. We want to have alarms that actually go off when you're attacked. Dr. Kumar, are you okay? Dr. Kumar was punched out yesterday. Now, DMH is well aware of these statistics. And one more perfect example of inertia, the fence. they have to have a fence built here near the secure treatment area. When I was in Vancouver last year and that lodger lost his life, don't you think within 12 hours, overnight, a 100-foot fence was put up by the Canadian government? We want a fence put up here, and we don't want an auditing committee taking their time about it. I think it's about scrutiny and self-interest myself. Look what happened to the congressional security when Gabby Giffords got shot by a mental patient. These people here are just as important as congressmen. You want to bring up money in the budget? Go ahead. There's no issue more important than safety. Besides the short-term solutions, we want long-term solutions. We want to amend some of the penal codes. 1026 with not guilty by reason of insanity. When these people recover and they're psychiatrically stable and still dangerous, kick them back to the corrections, will you? Amend 1370, which speeds up the process of getting a county conservatorship. Why should the state pay the freight and the rent of a patient who's not able to fend for himself? The county should be picking this money up. We want you to also amend the involuntary medication, the ability to give antipsychotic medicine within 48 hours. Finally, if someone commits a murder or a rape or disables someone, they should be automatically sent back to prison. State workers deserve the best in attention and action. I want to finally end this by reading a poem that I edited from Mike Laird of the International Association of Machinists that speaks to all people who work in public service. I write these words of honor for injury and lost lives, and for their families and their husbands and their wives, for those whose lives were spent during doing what they must, working for a living like every one of us. Their time cut short by things that didn't have to be, to make the workplace safe for people like you and me. To make sure their stories will never be untold, to always keep their memories from growing cold, we must remember the price they paid. And so today we honor the healthcare workers of Napa State.
Safety, 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 safety.
We're going to hear from Kim Cowart. She's a registered nurse here at the hospital.
Good afternoon. I'm not really sure what time of day it is. Because basically I'm here to speak about what it feels like to be a level of care staff and how it feels to work on a unit where you have a 1-to-8 or a 1-to-16 ratio. Basically that means that at night you only get 3 staff for 45 of our individuals. If there's a crisis on another unit, that means you may only go down to 2 or 1. That is unsafe on anybody's standard. We have presented for many years to the Department of Mental Health, to Napa State Hospital, these unsafe conditions, and they have turned a deaf ear. For 18 years, Dr. Mayberg was here, and for 18 years, from my perspective, and I'm sure for many, he did nothing, okay? So we're asking right now for the Department of Mental Health to look at the staffing ratios, to look at safety, to look at changes to the penal code, to have a way of having some type of assessment for our most violent people before they come to mental health, before they get here. Because if they don't, this will continue to happen. We will continue to have death. We will continue to have injuries that people do not recover from. These are people with lives, with families, with husbands, with wives, with children. We are not expendable. We are not robots. You can't just replace us when one of us dies, one of us gets injured. You know, we don't matter to the Department of Mental Health. We matter to each other, and we matter to our families. If we had had a lot of these solutions in place, maybe Donna's death wouldn't have happened. Maybe. maybe we wouldn't have the injuries that we have now with the bad assaults of people being airlifted to the hospital. That should not happen in a place that we are supposed to be giving care. And it is very difficult to give care to any individual when you're fearing for your own life and safety. Just this week, you had individuals that plotted and carried out, beating up their roommate. That is what we're dealing with. How are we as staff supposed to protect that vulnerable individual? We become targets ourselves when we try. So I'm asking, and we all are demanding that the Department of Mental Health and Napa State Hospital stand up for us, stand up for the people that we take care of, and we want safety, and we want it now.
Yeah! Safety now! Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you. You know, I want to just say one thing based on what Kim just said. You know, it's been really gratifying, and I know a lot of people here have done this, you know, speaking with some of the family members of the patients who are inside the hospital and realizing that we have the same goals and interests here. Because for the last several months Donna's been killed, this place has been in a lockdown. And it's pretty hard to have a therapeutic environment when you're in a lockdown, right? And so if we can get the things that we need put in place to create a safe and secure environment, those are the same things that the patients need to have a safe therapeutic environment here, right? Okay, the next speakers we have, Linda Monahan and Brad Legs, are from the Psychiatric Technicians Union.
My name is Brad Legs. I represent the Psychiatric Technicians. Today it's bigger than that, though. I represent the staff here at Napa State Hospital. I think that, you know, when we look at our sister Donna, who was taken out of murdered so tragically, we all, you know, we were all sad. It saddened all of us. But the problem that I have with it is that it was nothing that we didn't expect. We all, one day, we were going to come to work and hear that one of our staff had been hurt or killed or injured. You know, and for years we've been asking. I get calls on a weekly, every week I get calls from staff telling me that our numbers are down on the unit. We should have 7, but we only have 5. You know, and this is a consistent way that this hospital does business. I think that in these times, I feel so good today because for some time I think we've divided ourselves as labor organizations and as unions. But today we have sent a very strong message to management and the Department of Mental Health and the state of California that we stick together.
My name is Linda Monahan. I've been a psych tech since 1981. I trained originally at Atascadero and I transferred up to Napa. I've worked in the Department of Corrections, so I have a pretty extensive understanding of how things should work. I wanted to speak. Kim mentioned the staffing ratios, and I want you to really understand what that means. You're talking 8 to 1. Here's an example. You have 40 individuals on a unit. You have 5 staff assigned. You take 2 staff to escort an individual to a clinic, visit, appointment of some sort. That leaves you 3 staff with 39 patients. You have to send somebody to dinner, so not to violate labor laws. That leaves you 2 staff with 39 individuals. It's not safe for the staff. It's not safe for the individuals. The numbers that you're given numbers, but they're not the actual physical presence isn't on the unit. They'll tell you that they have 5 staff assigned to the unit, but 5 staff not physically on the unit. Yes.
So you know what? I think that the overall theme that you will hear today is safety.
Yes.
Safety now, safety always. I don't ever want to come back to work or leave work and have a tragedy like has happened back in October. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable.
Yes.
You know, and here they can push it under the carpet or, you know, try to act like everything is okay, but it's not okay. We don't feel safe. We don't feel safe.
Not this time.
No, not this time. So it's a new day, and I think united, the solidarity that we have here today, we'll get what we need. So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we have a lot of people here today who not only people who work at the hospital, and there's a lot of community support because people recognize how entrenched the problems here are and how much help we're going to need to get these solutions. So I wanted to bring up someone who's been a very good supporter. John Riley is the executive director, the Napa Solano Central Labor Council, and he'll say a few words.
Thank you very much. You know, we are having a national debate right now on what happens when we remove the safety net associated with those that are unfortunate enough to have mental disabilities. And we don't have to go to Tucson, Arizona to find the ramifications of elimination of those safety nets. And we need to have a dialogue, not only nationally, on a statewide level, but locally as well. As been mentioned before, there are a number of labor organizations present, but this is not a labor issue. This is a community issue. The safety of our work staff here at the hospital is a community issue. That's why we have so many elected officials, so many representatives from the community here today to signal loud and clear to staff at the hospital that the safety of the workforce should never be a line item on a budget. All right? And so we have to have this dialogue. So thank you very much.
Officials who did not wait for us to call them, they called us. And those two individuals are Senator Noreen Evans, state senator, and lucky for all of us, the new assemblyman for Napa, Assemblyman Michael Allen. And I just want to repeat that. I just want to repeat what I said a minute ago, because that doesn't happen. We took calls from their offices saying, can we meet with your workers, the workers that you represent, because we want to know what's going on. And I think everybody here knows that the two of them showed up and took a little walk behind the fence, right, in the secure treatment area. That's right. They know what's going on. So they made sure to send some people here, and I want to introduce Sharon Macklin. She's representing Assemblyman Michael Allen.
Yeah.
Well, Assemblymember Allen couldn't be here this afternoon. He's in the Capitol, but he wanted me to let you know that he's definitely with you in spirit. And his concern is for your safety and for the safety of the patients here. The stories that we have heard are... Whoa! The stories that we've heard from you and from the labor leaders are pretty unbelievable, and we are working with your organizations to try to see how we can make some changes, and we'll continue doing that. In fact, I wanted to let you know that we are having a public hearing on this issue, on Napa State Hospital safety issues, next Friday, the 28th, across the street at Napa Valley College. It's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, so I hope many of you can be there and participate.
We'll be there.
So we will continue working with you and hopefully get some things in place that will make you feel safe when you come to work. Thank you very much.
Puzo, who's here representing Senator Noreen Evans.
This is such a beautiful campus. It's 137 years old, and it's just not equipped to deal with what you folks are dealing with. And you truly are a community doing such noble work, and you should expect to be safe. And to that, Senator Evans has put in a bill of legislative intent, SB 60, to work on just that, the safety of all of you, of all the people that are committed to helping these unfortunate patients and to make their lives safe. Yes. So we're working with all the various stakeholders as well as Assemblymember Evans' office, and hopefully we're going to get some resolution to this and make sure that you come to work and do the work that you do in a safe environment. Thank you all.
Safety now! Safety now! Safety now! Safety now! Safety now!
Lori, thank you so much. And, you know, I was just talking to Sharon, and one of the things that we both forgot to mention is that Assemblyman Allen, before he was an assemblyman, was a psychiatric ER nurse. And he knows a lot about this work. He did this work. So we have a great ally in him. The next person I want to bring up is Dr. Richard Frishman. He's a psychiatrist here at Napa State Hospital, and he can speak personally about what the environment is like inside the secured area.
My name is Dr. Richard Frishman. I'm a psychiatrist. I worked in recent years at CSP-SAC in their SHU unit. And now, over the past 3 years, I've been working at Napa State Hospital on the admissions unit. I've never felt as unsafe in the entire time that I was in working for the Department of Corrections as I feel here at Napa State Hospital. Violence comes about for different reasons, but the outcome is usually the same. People are traumatized. And for many, the traumas are cumulative. This applies to both patients and staff. It was just about a month ago or longer when a patient known to be malingering was on the admissions unit. He had already assaulted a staff member and was escalating out of control. He was instructed by staff to go to a side room. He refused, instead opting to go to his room, where he calmly placed his glasses on the nightstand. Seconds later, he emerged from his room, slowly walked down the hallway, stating, quote, "Okay, I'm ready to go to the side room," end quote. And at that same instant, delivered a heavy blow to the side of the head of an innocent patient standing in line to receive his medication for the evening, adding, quote, "And now I have a real reason to go to the side room," end quote. Why wasn't this antisocial patient who was feigning a mental illness, perhaps to escape prosecution or doing harder time, or both, immediately arrested on the spot and carted off to jail?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a question we keep asking ourselves, and we're not satisfied with the answers. Because even though the innocent patient was struck extremely hard, and I know I was there, I witnessed it, we are all told that since this is a misdemeanor, in other words, there was no serious injury, in other words, the patient wasn't hit hard enough, it will not be prosecuted by the DA. What about intent? What happens next? And what does DMH do about this?
Nothing. As usual, nothing.
Not only was this patient not taken to jail, he was not even relocated to a different unit after having assaulted one staff and at least two of his peers. The judicial system fails us. There are many reasons why this is true, and our own hospital administration fails us by being reactive and not proactive.
Yeah. They need to move. They are not talented to take care of this place. They're incompetent. That's what it is. Yeah. Right? Yeah, they are incompetent. We need, in Africa, Tunisia had a regime change this week. We could do a regime change here. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. In mid-December of 2008, I was personally assaulted by a different kind of patient. In this situation, the patient was floridly psychotic and likely responded to voices that convinced him that the person interviewing him was not his doctor, but a bona fide demon. It was only minutes into the interview before the patient, without apparent warning, came flying across the table, delivering one blow after another. My attempts to protect myself were short-lived as I was hurled against the wall, striking my head and breaking my wrist. I was then forced to the ground, where the patient continued his punches to my head. At some point, I know I blacked out. There was no police presence. We don't have enough police. The nurse who was present with me during the interview immediately triggered her alarm. The alarm did not activate. She had to go running out of the room, down the hall, before additional help could be summoned. That could be a very long time when counted in blows per second.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you. Even though I returned to work the next week, I continued to feel traumatized for months. I still do. But I'm still alive. More than can be said for Donna Gross.
Yeah!
More than can be said for Donna. It was 2 weeks later, in December of 2008, again, just 2 weeks later, December 29th, I believe, while our unit was still recoiling from my assault, my eyes still blackened. Pictures say a lot. When another patient, while being monitored closely on a one-to-one for his psychotic and unpredictable behaviors, brutally attacked his one-to-one, and I do mean brutally attacked, choking, strangling, punching, slamming against the floor, with an apparent attempt to rape, although this was never proven. I hope Crystal is here to share her story directly. If a road was considered dangerous, it would be shut down or fixed.
Right.
If a building were uninhabitable, it would be torn down and a new structure put in its place. If a bridge was failing, corrective measures would be taken to protect the public's safety. Our mental institutions, Napa State Hospital included, are failing. Our system is failing. The dedicated men and women who take on this very challenging work that others would not consider pursuing require the tools to do it safely.
Yes. Yeah.
This will require new legislation based on a greater understanding of what goes on behind these fences. I hope this gathering today promotes a robust response, and I mean robust response, from our media, from our legislators, and from our newly elected governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Safety now. Safety. Safety now. 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 Safety now.
You know, like people have been saying, there's various unions are here today standing together. I see red from the psych techs. I've got navy blue on for the Union of American Physicians and Dentists. I see a lot of SEIU purple here. I also see a lot of green, because AFSCME represents several different classifications of workers at the hospital. And we have here with us today George Popiak. He's the executive director of Council 57 of AFSCME, and he's an international vice president of AFSCME as well.
Thank you. You should not, when you come to work, have to fear for your life, your safety. That should be a given, that all steps are taken to ensure that people are safe at work, and that's not happening here at Napa. You have heard, and you will hear more from the women and men who work in this facility about the issues, the dangers that they face every day when they go to work. And they'll tell the story more eloquent than I. So I want to be brief. And they will tell you a story which is much worse than the statistics that you'll be given, the numbers of assaults. It's much worse than that. What we have met, we have proposed, we have asked, we have demonstrated, and beyond that, now we're way beyond that. Now we have to demand, and we demand that there be a safe workplace. And We want the governor, we want the legislature, we want particularly the administration of this hospital to understand we're beyond asking and proposing and meeting. We now demand that they fix the problems at this hospital.
As I mentioned, AFSCME represents several different types of workers here at the hospital. Corrine Weaver is one of them. She's a social worker. And Zach Hatton is another one. He's a rehab therapist.
All right, Zach.
Thank you all. I'm Zach Hatton. I'm the Chief Steward for AFSCME Local 2620. We represent the psychologists, social workers, rehabilitation therapists, dietitians, pharmacists, chaplains, and our lone voc rehab counselor, Doug Ramo. So what we need is we need the community to say enough is enough. If the patients aren't safe, the staff aren't safe, the community is not safe. It is time for the legislature and the community leaders to say enough is enough. This needs to stop. The violence needs to stop at Napa State Hospital. We need to be protected. The patients need to be protected. It's in everybody's best interest. So I introduce Corrine Weaver, social worker and representative for AFSCME Local 2620.
Thank you. To all of the state workers that are here today, I just want to say tomorrow, when the press is gone, tomorrow when there's not a rally, we need to continue to loudly and vehemently demand for our safety. It is our right. To all of the affiliated union members that have come out in support of us and the family members of staff as well, I say thank you. I'm deeply humbled and grateful for your support. To the members of the press and to the politicians who are out here, I just simply say thank you. I hope you carry our message forward. We're simply demanding the right to safety, not only for ourselves, but for the patients that we treat. How can you treat in an unsafe environment? We don't want safety just for ourselves. We want safety for everyone that works here and everyone that lives here. We need massive reforms in the mental health system. We need a change in how the penal codes are worded. We need the assistance of our legislators to help us make this happen. We need a violence risk assessment for every patient that's here that actually has meaning, not the current paperwork. We need a high security unit for people that are so mentally ill that they cannot control themselves or are malingering and need other forms of assistance that has a higher police presence and a higher staffing ratio. We need the shackles that have been placed around our wrists as staff here to be removed so that we can help these people so that they can return home and be with their families as well. In the hospital, we need an increased police presence and we need increased staffing, every discipline across the board. And we need alarms and we need monitoring that actually means something. I think the message that I just want the general public to know is everyone that works here and everyone that lives here and receives treatment here, we're all children and we're all parents. We all have families, staff and patients alike, that we deserve to go home to. Thank you.
I would like everybody to just take a moment of silence for all those patients and all those staff have been murdered or injured here at work. So if we could just take a moment of silence, I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much.
The last person we're going to hear from today is Mary Hall. Mary's an RN here at the hospital, and she's speaking not just for herself, but she's speaking for probably over 1,000 people, 1,000 workers who have come together to have a unified voice here at the hospital.
Thank you and good afternoon. A few months ago, out of frustration and fear for our own lives, the lives of fellow employees and the mentally ill who needed our protection and advocacy, a grassroots movement began to grow. It resulted in a Facebook page where employees could express their concerns for safety, their personal experiences with assaults, staffing issues, ideas for change in the state mental health hospital system, and a place to vent their frustrations. A life was taken, and our numbers grew. From the collective voice of all these employees, newspapers, television news, and politicians responded. Voices that were once stifled, silenced, and afraid were being heard around the country. Together, we gather as members of various unions. It is a good thing to see us come together and work towards a common goal of safety for all employees as well as for our patients. But do not forget, it was the voices of all the employees who expressed themselves through this grassroots movement who gave momentum to this gathering today. It is the responsibility of each employee, a civil responsibility to the community, to their fellow employees, to the patients they serve, to the families, to themselves, to stand up for what is right. It is only right that the truth should be told and acted upon. In the words of the great songwriter and singer, John Mayer, say what you need to say. Thank you.